Hi, my name's Catherine Jewett, and here's my presentation on global warming, and also my dog Wes wanted to say hi. Okay, global warming by Catherine Jewett. Okay, so the purpose of this PowerPoint is, I'm going to answer the question, is global warming naturally occurring or is it man-made? And then in order to do that, I'm going to talk about the background of global warming, the effects of global warming on animals, the human error side, the naturally occurring side, my personal opinion, and then the COVID-19 effects on global warming, and then a conclusion. So to start off, some background on global warming. So global warming really just means a rise in the average temperature of the climate system. The first global temperature was taken in 1810, and it was 13.7 degrees Celsius. Global warming dates back to the first Revolutionary War in 1820, whenever manufacturing started, and it started to really take off as people, had more money to buy things, the demand to make those things, and cars started to be invented, and so gas had to be manufactured and stuff. In 1859, Tyndall, who's a famous scientist, showed that some gases blocked the infrared radiation. And then in 1958, telescope studies showed how the greenhouse effect rises temperature in the atmosphere above Venus. And then the last global temperature was taken in 2019, and it was 14.8 degrees Celsius. And right here is a picture of, that's actually Pittsburgh at noon in the 1920s. And you can see how cloudy and foggy it is even during the day because of all that pollution from the the power plant sites and the steel sites. Okay, so how is global warming measured? So global warming is measured, it takes a lot more than just, taking a thermostat into the air or the ground. It takes some serious, expensive, very precise and accurate tools in order to get the correct data. And so of course the air temperature is measured, the sea temperature, at the surface and the seafloor as well, land temperature, and this is from literally all over the world. It's not just 4 or 5 spots. And then all that data is collected and it's graphed, and it's usually graphed over a 15 to 30 year span to see if there is any trend lines in the global temperature. So what does global warming affect? So it affects a lot more than just what's on this list right now, but these are just some ideas. So it affects weather patterns. As temperature increases, there's a higher chance of weather disasters happening. Glaciers are melting, causing severe drought and sea levels to rise. The increase of the risk of wildfires, animal habitats are in extreme danger and causing the extinction of some animals. Cities face heat waves, causing more allergies and pollen. Heavy downpours are more likely and can damage buildings and houses. And this is actually from a BBC article, and that is showing how all the ice is melting, and polar bears' habitats are shrinking. So the 4 reasons for humans being responsible for global warming are industrial plants, vehicle emission, deforestation, and electricity. So how does human activity cause global warming? So in one of the NASA articles, they said, we know that the long-term trends are being driven by the increase of levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So greenhouse gases are gases that absorb radiant energy and don't allow infrared radiation from leaving the atmosphere. So the greenhouse gases are essentially what is causing the global warming. So gases trap radiation from the sun and warm the planet's surface. Examples of these gases are methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide. Methane is usually produced through agricultural, so the main source of it, and then carbon dioxide usually comes from burning coal, oil, and gas. Okay, so industrial plants. So these are the huge smokestacks that you see usually driving around the city or out in the countryside. These plants burn coal, oil, and gas, as long as usually other things too, but there's the three main ones. And according to the USDA of Agricultural, in 2017, 29.7% of greenhouse gas emissions came from industries. And as the demand for that gas increases, so does the greenhouse gas emission. So as more people are buying cars, then more people need gas, and so these industrial plants are going to be burning more gas. Okay, so vehicle emissions. So according to energy.gov in 2019, or 1990, there were 0.11 vehicles for every 1,000 people, and in 2012 there were 107.99 vehicles for every 1,000 people. So as you can see, the more people having cars has significantly increased, and vehicles burn gasoline and diesel, and these are both fossil fuels that release carbon dioxide gas into the atmosphere, and this gas has nowhere to go except just stay in the atmosphere, hurting it. And humans are the ones choosing to buy the car, take the taxi, get on the bus, get on the train, when they could be walking or biking, and that could do a lot for the environment. So electricity. So the EPA says that 28% of the total U.S. greenhouse gas emission is coming from electricity production. Humans demand energy so that they're able to power things, and it makes their life easier as well as faster. And we're talking things like microwaves, charging your phone, light bulbs, TV, like old school fireplaces, even the grill with the using like coal, gas stoves that release carbon dioxide. All these things that are a necessity, or humans think as a necessity, is actually hurting the planet. So deforestation. So during photosynthesis, trees and plants take in carbon dioxide and then they release oxygen, and that's how we're able to breathe. So when these trees get cut down, all that carbon dioxide gets released into the atmosphere. And according to the Rainforest Alliance, deforestation alone can cause about 10% of the worldwide carbon emissions. And humans are responsible for, knocking down these trees in order to build new buildings, homes, stores. And I get, sometimes trees will die and they'll fall over, or a natural event will occur that will knock these trees down, but it's still not more than, what humans are doing. So now the reasons why global warming is naturally occurring. There's three reasons. That's Earth orbitals, volcanoes, and ocean currents. So Earth orbitals, so the Earth goes through warm and cool phases. That's why the Ice Age occurred. It depends on the exact tilt of the planet compared to the sun. And the climate of the Earth depends on the amount of energy that is stored within it. And an Earth goes around the sun, temperatures will vary because of the intensity of light changes as it's, rotating. So volcanoes. So naturally, volcanoes emit carbon dioxide when they're in their dormant and active state. So dormant is like asleep essentially, and then active is between dormant and, eruption. So when they erupt, all that carbon dioxide gets released into the atmosphere. And according to NASA, volcanoes emit between 130 and 230 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. And just to give an example of that, in 1982, when El Chichon erupted, which is a famous volcano, probably one of the most devastating volcanoes that have ever erupted, particles stayed in the atmosphere for more than a year, reflecting sun. So, as people were walking around, that they were able to tell that, the sun almost had like a tint to it, and it was just darker. Okay, so now for ocean currents. So currents move water depending on the temperature and density and salinity of that water. So warm surface currents carry less dense water away from the equator, and then cold dense water towards the equator, and this is known as the conveyor belt. And this will affect the global temperature because currents help the uneven distribution of solar radiation hitting the Earth's surface. And it also, in order to do this, it takes a lot of energy to change the temperature of water almost uniformly, like through all the oceans. And, you know, obviously, ocean currents is a natural thing. Okay, so my personal opinion, I believe humans are to blame for global warming. There's so much evidence supporting that we are, and, you know, as human activity increases, global warming is increasing, and it's a, you know, linear relationship almost. And I also think that a lot of small things can be done to help the solution, even like turning off the light before you leave the room, unplugging your TV, you know, choosing to walk or ride a bike, like wherever you go. You know, it's really just these little things that you may not see a big difference, but it is helping. So now with this recent pandemic going on, I decided to add it into my presentation because I think it's very important. So despite this being a horrific time, global warming has actually, in fact, gotten better. I'm going to use China as an example. So China was the first one hit with the virus, and China is also the largest contributor of the carbon dioxide emissions. And a New York Times reporter said China measures to contain the virus in February alone caused a drop of an estimated 25% carbon emissions. So because they issued a stay-at-home warning, people haven't been out driving cars, they haven't been taking the trains, there really hasn't been a need to make as many things because people just aren't doing anything. Human activity is significantly lower, and so people are, so that is why the carbon emissions have gone down, and people are able to see that human emissions are causing global warming because when human activity is slowed, global warming decreases as well, which I just talked about. So here, I just want to talk about this for a second. So this image on the left was from January 2020. This is from February 2020. And all this yellow stuff you can see is and the NO3 density in the air. So as you can see, in February when the virus started, or when it really got big and the stay-at-home order was issued, all that emissions went away. Okay, so conclusion, I hope people realize that global warming is a real issue, and people try to start helping the cause, you know, doing whatever they possibly can to help it, and sooner or later something has to change or our kids may not have a planet to live on. Thank you. And here are my resources.